Hashtag no music, no intro. We are back in our dude, Matt Harmon's Yahoo Sports, Reception Perception, joining us. I don't know, I haven't called you this, but I'm going to call you like the lost Hemsworth brother. Um, Meeting you finally in Indy, dapping you up. Yoked as hell, the lost Hemsworth brother himself, Matt Harmon, joining SBP again. Thanks for coming on, talking about this hectic, crazy team that we call the Saints.
Well, I mean, so much to go off of right there. Number one, appreciate you boys for having me. Of course, always good to see both of you. Secondly, it's funny you bring up the lost Hemsworth brother thing. Actually, one of the first things that my mother-in-law, who's since passed away, so you rest in peace, of course. But one of the first things she ever said about me to my wife, then not even girlfriend at the time, just someone I was associating with. First thing she said about me was, "He looks like a yummy Hemsworth," and I was like, I think your mother and I are going to get along really well.
See, I wasn't. See, R.I.P. But she also sees the vision.
Yeah, she was always a little too high on my stock, that's for sure. But I appreciate it nonetheless.
Listen, Matt dapped me up and gave me a hug, and I felt like I was in Asgard just for a second. He just transported me. But it was so cool finally get to see you, meet you in Indy at the Combine. Obviously the goal next year for both of us to be there so we can all get to, because that was your first Combine too. It was both our first Combines together, right? Which was a pretty dope and fun experience. These fucking Saints. So we kept it a little buttoned up last time you had you on the show. This time I feel like we need to just be ourselves because
let those buttons down, bro.
these fucking Saints. The biggest news, probably since free agency came out a couple of days ago, as my daughter's like being wheeled in to get like an emergency, getting her appendix taken out. I'm like, so much happening on that Friday. Saints. Derek Carr may be out for the season, shoulder surgery, allegedly, maybe, what? And seems like all hell's kind of broken loose on airline. What was your first thought, reaction when you heard the news?
First was I gotta text Adam about this. That was my first thought. We need to get in a group text together. So
I got you.
Ryan,
I got you.
Get you in the next.
Yes.
Time. Yeah, Adam
bring Rosenthal in. Bring everybody.
Bring everybody in because that was my first thought, and my second thought was, man, I mean, for a team that no offense, is like basically irrelevant.
None taken, buddy.
for a team that is basically like in the league, scale, pretty irrelevant. They got to be like the weirdest team in the league, man. I've been saying it all off season, and then this was just like the cherry on top of that, because what has under the surface, and you guys have done a good job reporting on this and discussing it, what has already felt like weird bubbling under the surface kind of tension is now basically laid out for the world to see. I just wrapped taping Football 301 with Nate Tice, and we talked about this where it was already like, hey, quarterback is a need for the Saints and like is a possibility for them early in the first round at the 9th overall pick. Now it's like everybody's going to be saying that. So it's no longer like a hipster thing.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what's so funny about it. And it's always funny to me when I watch like national people that cover the entire league, like Mina, you, Greg Rosenthal, everybody. And when the Saints come up, it's always followed by a sigh. Like and now we got the Saints. I don't know. I just always laugh at that, man, because we're the same way. We're the Saints fans, and we're the same. Like we're just like, oh. But yeah, man, it's such a fascinating story, and it's kind of like a long time coming, because nobody really felt like Derek Carr. Nope, Derek Carr doesn't want to be with the Saints. Saints fans don't want Derek Carr. It's like, what are we doing here?
Kellen Moore didn't want him before he got hired. So it's just a weird marriage. And like it was just like Mickey just kind of got them in the room. It was like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, you ever have like a mediator that have like, I don't know, a couple that like obviously a divorce is like needed, but a mediator's like, no, like you guys are gonna get it together. Like you guys are gonna figure it out. Like get in the room and figure it out. And like they left the room and like nothing got figured out. Like they still couldn't stand each other. So it just now begs this question, and I was talking to you about it, and it's just so much dysfunction because some people in the organization knew about the injury and some people in the front office didn't know about the injury. And it's like, how are you making draft plans, like concrete draft plans with people who are making decisions in this building who didn't even know the full story about this injury that may require surgery or not require surgery? And I still have my certain thoughts, like he maybe doesn't need surgery at all. He's just kind of just not play for the Saints anymore. But it does kind of put the center of attention at quarterback at 9, and now you already heard the report coming out. Carolina's like, hey, we're open for business. Anyone wants to come up to 8? Like, we're open. I was looking back at you did an episode with Derek in terms of talking about Shedeur Sanders. I was at the Colorado Pro Day. The Dak Prescott comparison, not one that I see. I still I squint to see it. Like I can't. Like I don't see it. But in terms of how they win with Shedeur Sanders and Dak, I 100% see they win very similarly. Maybe just talk about the fit. And I don't even know if they were to go that route at 9, but just maybe talk about the fit if he is the option for them at 9 in the draft.
Yeah. This was a long time ago. Derek and I did the show together where I kind of thought like, hey, and again, you guys have been sort of kind of bubbling this theory for a long time that maybe the Saints might be hot and heavy after a quarterback. And to me, immediately I'm like, Shedeur actually makes a lot of sense with the Saints for a couple different reasons. One, from just an environmental perspective, I think playing in the dome is probably the best thing for him.
Yes.
Because I actually kind of buy the idea that Cleveland is gonna, if Shedeur doesn't go 9 to the Saints, if he starts falling down the draft board a little bit, into the 20s or whatever, I could buy the theory that Cleveland goes Travis Hunter at 2 and then comes back up for Shedeur and just like pair him back up. Number one, like that's a team that is very much irrelevant, and it's an owner that does not want them to be irrelevant. Well, the surest way to be relevant right away is you take these two guys out of Colorado, and every major media network is talking about you in a positive light for the first time since you inked the Deshaun Watson contract, basically. Right. And perhaps maybe ever. Talking about you positively in that way. So I do buy that is a possibility, but you think about like Cleveland, weather, wind late in the season, I'm not sure that's the best thing for a guy like Shedeur, but playing in the dome where it's just consistent conditions, whenever you're at home, I think that could be good for him. Secondly, I do think he's a really good fit in Kellen Moore's offense, which is pretty traditional, like quick game concepts. And I think Shedeur is smart, accurate, and when he's confident in what he's seeing and confident in the protection, plays on time and can play in a pretty good rhythm. I think they have the right receivers to execute that from a Chris Olave standpoint when he's on the field, and I think Rashid Shaheed's a better underneath separator than he is credited for. Like I think those guys, the three of them, could be really good fits in the offense and some of the concepts that Kellen wants to run. I just wonder if organizationally they see it the same way. But I do think from that standpoint, I think he makes a lot of sense. And even just some of the deeper concepts as well. I don't think Shedeur has like a Chad Pennington arm or something like that.
No.
In terms of these like deep play action shots, deeper digs, full field crossers, I actually think that he can push those accurately on time in a way that sets a guy like Chris Olave, who's consistently knocked for not having a lot of yards after the catch. I'm like, number one, his slant route rate, and I might have told you guys this on the previous podcast, but his slant route rate from his rookie year is literally the lowest slant route percentage I have charted for any receiver any season since 2014. Like this guy's not had a lot of chances to run in breakers. Last year was really the first time, basically in the course of his career, that was the case. And of course, cut short with injuries, there was a lot of chaos and the whole thing in New Orleans. So I think with Shedeur, you're setting up a guy like Chris Olave to run after the catch on some of these end breakers, and Rashid Shaheed as well.
I'm glad you brought up Olave because like every now and then on Twitter, like among Saints Twitter, there's this kind of like this bash Olave.
Oh God!
It's a
we talked about it last.
We
talked about it last year too.
Yeah, it's not all Saints fans. It's just a certain segment that's like trade Olave, get rid of him. I get it. Like, especially the injury standpoint, I can understand that aspect of it. But even before, like, the concussions this year, it was just like there's some people that just don't like him for some reason that I just don't really understand. I mean, the kid has put up, over 1,000 yards with Andy Dalton and Derek Carr and Jameis Winston, like, multiple seasons. What is it that can be unlocked? I think the biggest thing is he doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. Mm-hmm. But to me, I don't know if that's like an ability thing. That seems more like just a usage, a deployment thing,
Yeah, I mean, one of the best receivers we've ever seen play the game, who just recently retired, Julio Jones, who me growing up a Panthers fan and you guys as a Saints fan, we were all familiar with what Julio Jones can do. Yep. We were all familiar. But that guy had, like, touchdown scoring problems, and I think most of that was just, not a Julio Jones issue. That was mostly just, usage and some of the quarterback stuff and everything like that. So I think that a guy like Chris Olave, who separates really well and against man coverage, like, you can get that guy to score 8 to 10 touchdowns in a season, no problem. Your team has to score a lot of touchdowns. The Saints have been, and I obviously doing like a fantasy football show, we talk about this a lot. The Saints have been like overloaded on weird touchdown vultures. I mean, you had like a season, obviously you got the Taysom Hill thing, of course. Right. You had a season when like Jimmy Graham was stealing a few touchdowns in there the last couple of years.
Jimmy Graham had like 5 receptions and 5 touchdowns.
Exactly. So like they've cornered the market. They've hoarded like touchdown vultures that aren't even running
last
backs.
Year. Yeah, like MVS
yeah. So they've always got like a random receiver that pops up or something like that. So I think a lot of it has just been circumstantial. And again, the team is not they've been high in like points scored, but some of that has been from these like random role players ish. But yeah, I think Olave is a great player. He also is the type of quarterback though the type of wide receiver that needs the right quarterback. And I don't think Derek Carr and him have ever really seen the game the same way. They've always been.
Absolutely
I was saying it nicely. But there's always just been like a weird disconnect between those two guys, which is strange because obviously Carr has had productive moments with a wide variety of receivers too. Like, I mean, Hunter Renfrow and him had a great chemistry and connection. Obviously, Devontae Adams had one of his more productive seasons, even if it wasn't one of the more productive from a per route basis. Like, he fed that guy the football in the intermediate area, and it just was always weird. And even Rashid Shaheed and him have had a really good connection and chemistry. But for some reason, those two guys have just never really been on the same page. I think that's been part of it. But also, like, he's the type of guy that you don't just necessarily give Chris Olave like a bunch of Mickey Mouse touches underneath or anything like that. He is a real deal route runner, and that does require the right like timing and anticipatory passer.
Or I think you hit on the money because me and Ryan this has been on our avenue for like the last 2 seasons. Like, Chris Olave will be open, and like Derek Carr does not, like, he would not look his way at all. Like, it was just like he wasn't even on the field. It really felt like after that Jags game, it was like Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Monday Night Football game, prime time, when it goes viral that like he was like yelling at Olave for like running the wrong route,
the alert route,
which he didn't run the wrong route, he run the right route, but he like, it just seemed like everything after that has just went sideways completely, and they just have not been on the same page and what have you. But so there's also this theory that I've heard, and I feel like this is what's really going to plague the Saints between now and draft day, is do we just go quarterback at 9? Like, do we just, whoever it is, whether it be Shador, Dart, maybe Milroe, because I do know they loved Milroe before he kind of cratered in the last 5 games at Alabama, but they had a very strong like infatuation for Milroe. Prior to then, do they just go to quarterback at 9, or do they do this thing where they want their cake and they eat it too, and they go best BPA? Do they go a Tyler Warren or a Tetairoa McMillan at 9, and then whoever quarterback they have the affinity for, if that quarterback is falling, trade up and get that quarterback later in the draft, and whether that be using their 40th overall pick, or knowing this team, they may trade next year's 2026 first, and that pick just gone. Just knowing how this team operates. But we'll talk about Tet, but just talk about like maybe what your thought is of like the asset management is if they were to go that route of a Warren or a Tet at 9, and then coming back at some point in the draft and getting their quarterback later. I guess it depends on where the quarterback is.
I do think a lot of teams will flirt with this idea because I think that when you just look at the back half of the second round, like let's say the Saints don't go quarterback at 9. Like, where's the next spot for a quarterback? Like, this whole chunk afterwards from, like, Bears, Niners, Cowboys, Dolphins, Colts, Falcons, Cardinals, Bengals, Seahawks, like, Bucks, Broncos.
That's the one to me.
Seahawks, I get. I could see it just because the Darnold contract is essentially a 1-year deal, but that would feel pretty tough. Like, your whole kind of offseason is, hey, we're rebuilding the offense under Gary Kubiak and Sam Darnold. He's a great fit in this offense, and then you're going to kneecap him on draft night. That does feel a little tough. But I think once we get to, like, Pittsburgh and the Rams in the back half, those are, like, actual quarterback teams. But with Pittsburgh, let's say they actually sign Aaron Rodgers, which somehow still has not happened. I don't think they're going first-round quarterback if they take Rodgers. Like, you're trying to win. Like, you're trying to win that this year. The Rams would then become the interesting one at the 26th overall pick. And I do think just because they're like the Vikings at 24 are an interesting team to trade down because they don't have a lot of picks because they traded their future picks to get J.J. McCarthy last year. So I think that's the team that you might be looking to jump. And if Dart and Shador are both still on the board in that scenario, then it is kind of, hey, maybe we do just need to trade maybe next year's first-round pick or whatever. I don't love it. I don't love doing it, but that would sort of seem to me to be the spot. I really wonder what their view of Jackson Dart is, and maybe you guys.
I know that they like him. I wish I could tell you definitively if they love him. That I haven't been able to pinpoint.
The only thing that is kind of stuck in my head about the whole thing is that there's so much like this Jalen Hurts comparison for Jackson Dart, which, in my opinion, I feel like you have to really squint at and like focus on a couple of different attributes to see it. I think it's the rushing instincts, and I think it's the way he places. And I'm not even saying rushing ability. I'm saying rushing instincts. And I also think the way he places like go routes outside the numbers is a little reminiscent of Jalen Hurts, but that's it. Those are the two things that I do wonder, because Kellen obviously coached Jalen last year. Maybe there is a reason that this connection keeps popping up. Maybe, but those are the two. That's kind of the spot. 24th overall with the Vikings is the spot I would look at.
Yeah, that's a good one. I never really thought about that. I think that would be a good target. A smart team would do. So Saints, I don't know. Another thing is like everybody. Like this, it seems like the Saints are putting out a lot of smoke intentionally about the quarterback because nobody really knows. Like when you talk to people, some people say they love Shador, some people say they love Dart, some people say they love. We had Tony Pauline on a few days ago. He said they love Ewers out of Texas. I'm hearing a lot about Shook. The Shook thing has just risen out of nowhere this past week. God. They love Shook. So honestly, I don't know. Like I don't know who they like, but. The thing we keep talking about on this podcast is we don't really know what Kellen Moore likes, like because every quarterback he's had has already been in place when he's been there with with Dak, with Justin Herbert, and with with Jalen Hurts, all different style quarterbacks to a certain extent. So it's like, who is Kellen Moore? Like what is he looking for in a quarterback? Nobody really knows.
It's a great point, and all three of those guys, at least in my opinion, are really different in terms of Justin Herbert, Dak, and Jalen Hurts. I think that's a credit to Kellen Moore that he has had, to varying degrees, functional offenses with three very different quarterbacks, and I think he's been like to me. I think that it's funny that it gets framed this way with the Eagles' offense last year. That what did Kellen Moore do? Like they just had a bunch of superstar players. Yeah, dude, do you know how many times we talk about like these teams that have superstar players and the coordinator can't get that F out of the way? Like that, that's what he did, was basically like, all right, let's lean into the things that these superstar players do really well. And hey, let me take my offense that was in Dallas very oriented to a guy like Dak Prescott, who likes to work quick game, is a smart, accurate passer, works over the middle, things of that nature. Like, that's not Jalen Hurts' game at all. Well,
no,
we didn't see a lot of those passing concepts. We saw a little bit of like, hey, let's get Devontae Smith more slot routes than ever before, which I actually think would be pretty cool if Chris Olave could be on the field to run some of those routes. That would be a great way to get him some layups, but we can do a little bit of that. But other than that, like, yeah, we're still leaning into what A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts have done really well together all this time. So that's it's a great point that like we don't know what a Kellen Moore quarterback looks like. All these three guys are inherited, and they're all very, very different. So that's why I think you're probably getting a lot of like, well, they like this, they like this, they like this, they like that, because he probably does like different aspects of all of these guys. And
Right.
I also think it's fair to ask, because to bring it all the way back around to the Derek Carr point, 99% of people, probably including Derek Carr himself and a lot of people with the team, are like, yeah, it's probably about time this marriage ends. The one person who disagreed with it is the guy that's calling the shots. Like, that is the one person who thought that, no, we should continue this marriage, was the therapist that you outlined earlier. Like, now we can work it out. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. That's the one guy calling the shots here. So that's another thing that's fascinating, whereas maybe Kellen's like, I like this about Shedeur Sanders, and Mickey Loomis says, yeah, but I really like Jackson Dart, so that's going to be the pick.
That's such a thing, because I know that in 2023, Mickey's handprints were like all over the Saints draft picks, and it was like it was an awful draft class. Like Brian Bresee, you look at, you're like, oh yeah, he's a decent player. Anyone else in that draft class, just awful, just a terrible draft class. From what I was told, Mickey Loomis did not have his input on like any pick last year in 2024. Like, it seems like it was very Jeff Ireland driven draft class. So with such an important draft class this year, it's going to be very interesting to know who gets the say, like who's making that call. One player I wanted to talk about, because he was, so, we talked about this on kind of our Patreon episodes, and we've kind of let this kind of come out as the season's going on, or as the off season's going on. The Saints draft or their cloud, right? So their cloud has changed since January till now. Originally, I was told that their cloud was Will Johnson, Tetairoa McMillan, Mason Graham, Abdul Carter. Am I forgetting anybody, Ryan? That was it, right?
No, Jetty wasn't in there.
No. So those were the four. And then it seems like after Kellen Moore got hired as head coach, a lot of push of kind of Tyler Warren getting added to the cloud. And I don't know if that was mostly driven by Kellen Moore just having a specific vision of how he wants to utilize Tyler Warren if he's the pick, or what have you. But obviously, there's been a lot of Tetairoa things that's come out since this whole process. Even from when we met in the combine, there's been a lot of more Tet stuff that's happened, and so I don't even know where he falls in the Saints cloud anymore. I still think I think he's still up there, and I still think would be in consideration for him to be at 9 if he's hoping to go top 10. Like, I would say he should pray that the Saints do it, because if he doesn't go to 9, I don't know where he's going to go high. But I wanted to share your tweet on him in terms of not obviously your article, but just for fans who he's fascinating, because I know a lot of fans were like, oh, if he's there at 9, like fans were like, he's not going to be there at 9 at the beginning of this process. Like, there's no way Tetairoa McMillan's going to be there at 9. And me and Ryan watched them, and we were like, oh, he's 100% going to be there at 9. Like, there's no way he's not going to be there at 9. But just your thoughts charting him, breaking him down. And one thing I will say, if he is the Saints pick at 9, and we talked about this in Indy, of just how he just brings a kind of a hierarchy to their wide receiver room that they don't have.
Yeah, it's a great way of framing it, because I think what this room really lacks is like a true X receiver. Like last year with Gary Kubiak, they wanted to play, because of course it's off Shanahan tree, they want to play a lot of 12 personnel. They want to play multiple tight ends. It's interesting you bring up the Kellen Moore, Tyler Warren point, because while he doesn't come from this offensive tree, he has also done a lot of really creative and fascinating stuff with tight ends, especially back in those Dallas days. I can't remember now who like the random – they would always have like a
Dalton
random
Schultz
third – well, yeah. I mean, Dallas specializes in like white Big Ten.
Oh my God!
Ends who basically
it's crazy.
they're about the same size. They run about the same middling 40. They've like just cycled through that player for a long time. But they had a guy that I can't remember his name right now, but he played with the Commanders for a little bit. It might have been Jeremy Sprinkle.
Oh, yeah, that name sounds familiar.
He just was their third tight end, and they're like, they're doing some cool stuff with like Jeremy Sprinkle in the backfield. So I think because of that, I do think Warren would actually make sense in a Kellen Moore offense. But sticking on McMillan, again, they really lacked that like true X receiver, because last year they kind of had it when they were in two tight end sets. Rashid Shaheed's not a guy who is going to be your X. He's going to be your move around slot flanker type. So Olave kind of had to be that X receiver and run a lot of those. Think about like the big in-breaking routes that like Brandon Ayuk or Nico Collins runs in this offense. Like Chris Olave can run those routes, but I think also because he is a speed guy that you want to get working in the intermediate area, he makes a lot of sense as a Z receiver, the flanker. So I think adding McMillan into this offense immediately puts Olave in that role, kind of has Shaheed and him kind of rotating and working together. You're going to put guys in, like, defenses in conflict. If one of those guys is the on-the-ball slot receiver and the other is moving between slot flanker and on, like, pre-snap motion, full-speed motion at the snap concepts, and you go back and watch, especially early on in the season with the Eagles offense where, like, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are doing some of that switch release action.
Yep.
And I'm not even talking about what Tet's bringing from like a production standpoint.
Right.
He just allows you to have that back, what I've called like the sacrificial X receiver, and McMillan obviously.
I love that term.
Oh, that's a great term.
Well, you're hoping McMillan's not a sacrificial X.
Yeah.
He's taking 9th overall. But just simply like on some of those concepts, he allows you to do that. So that's what I mean by like him unlocking this receiver room and like hierarchy perspective. In terms of him as a player, he's like a tier 2 receiver prospect for me. Last year, the guys that all went in the top 10. Harrison, Odunze, and Neighbors are all tier 1 prospects. I think Travis Hunter, if you're just viewing him as a wideout, is a tier 1 prospect. Yep. So there's kind of a drop-off then to guys like McMillan. And look, I mean, Brian Thomas, we talked about him last year.
Man,
I viewed him as a tier 2 prospect.
Wrong. I was so wrong on Brian Thomas Jr.
He obviously way outkicked those expectations. So that type can become your number 1. I just think he's a little bit like Cortland Sutton to me. I mean, you look at the route chart here, those like deep in breakers, that's very Cortland Sutton-esque. Like can be your number 1, but probably best as like a high end 2, which I actually like the idea of him and Olave kind of sharing that number 1 wide receiver title for a team.
Yeah, man. And watching him, like those comebacks, man, he would come back like I don't know what, bro. I'm like, what the hell? And it's so hard to try to come up with a comp for him. Like Drake London got thrown around a lot early. I was like a poor man's AJ Green, maybe. I don't know. It's like
I call him Cortland Sutton when we did our.
Cortland Sutton is like a good one, but I don't remember scouting him, so I can't really put my finger on it.
This is like the same family of wide receivers where if we're talking about like, I think Michael Thomas, speaking of former Saint, he's like the peak of this archetype, like the better than you think separation X receiver.
Right.
Man, it's a shame that Michael Thomas never got to play with a guy who could really activate him downfield. And, I know I'm just preaching to the choir. It's also funny, by the way, people, if they sign up for a reception perception subscription, they get
Please do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If you look at the full history data, go back and look at like Michael Thomas's alignment data. This time of year, everybody's like, yeah, this guy could be a big slot receiver, just like Michael Thomas was for the Saints. Like, no, that guy was playing as the X receiver. He was out there as the X. He just ran a lot of quick in breakers because that was what Drew Brees did. But
could throw at the time.
Exactly. So he's like kind of him and Drake London to me are like 1-2 in this archetype. I don't view McMillan in that grouping. I think he is more in this Sutton or Michael Pittman type tier. And Michael Pittman isn't the Colts X receiver because they have like the sacrificial X receiver in Alec Pierce.
Alec Pierce.
Yeah, he is the sacrificial X. So they move Pittman around a little bit. And I actually think McMillan, you think about those comebacks, you think about some of these deeper in breakers, he could really be used well, kind of deployed off the line of scrimmage.
It's like I look at it and I would hate it from an asset prospect wise because I just think like if it does take a 2026 first round pick, that pick probably is top 8, top 7, knowing this team. But I could see how as an organization they could sell it, right? Like, hey, we're gonna get a McMillan at 9, we're gonna get a Warren at 9, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna get our quarterback, and then we have an offense for like we have AK, we could draft a running back later, then we have a full receiver room. Yeah, our offensive line is, when healthy, because that's something they love saying. When healthy, our offensive line is pretty decent. And so this young quarterback of the future, maybe that quarterback doesn't even have to start right away. Maybe Spencer Rattler can go out there a few games, take his lumps, and kind of just sell it to the fan base, and maybe even sell it to themselves. Whoever the quarterback is walking into a situation where it's not as dire as it may be, as most quarterbacks are walking into situations as rookies.
Yeah, I can see it. I would. I'm not saying I would totally buy it, but I could like nod along with the sell there because right now it's just the Saints have interesting players. I mean, Alvin Kamara's coming off another great year. The offensive line, I think, when healthy is big, but when healthy did outkick expectations last year. Some of that was a scheme, but I also think Kellen Moore has done well to adjust to offensive lines previously. And then Olave and Shaheed, again, when healthy, are a really nice 1-2 punch. The problem is, like, just like we saw last year, I mean, I cannot tell you how many times, like, when I was filtering rookie receivers for the reception perception rookie report, I'm like, Mason Tipton is just, like,
baby,
popping up with a stone cold 0 yards per route run against man coverage. I mean, just like what the depth just falls off so quickly. So
it's okay. We got a 30-year-old Brandon Cooks to save the day, buddy. Don't worry.
Oh my God, I keep forgetting about that. But yeah, that is a thing that is happening. That is a thing that's happening. That's kind of before the Derek Carr thing happened. That had to be like the weirdest part of their offseason, and what has been a weird offseason was like, you know what we really need? We really need a reunion with Brandon Cooks.
Well, they wanted Cooper Kupp, and then he wanted more. He wanted like two years, and they were willing to meet the $15 million or whatever in return. And then he said he wanted like more years, and that's when they were like, "Yeah, we're out."
Yeah, we're out. Those years in Seattle are fake, anyways. He'll be with Seattle 1 year, and then that's probably about it.
Exactly.
No, but obviously the Saints do want like an X type receiver. They want that. So who else? Like, if you don't go Tech, who else in this draft fits that mold? Like, is it Trey Harris? I know you did a recent episode on him I listened to that was really good because he's like a guy. You see his size. Like, I don't watch any college football for the most part, so I just look at the size and the profile and stuff. I'm like, oh, this looks interesting. And I put it on, and I'm like, something's missing here. Like, because he's making, like, the production is crazy, but something's missing with Trey Harris. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, Ryan, the rest of the route tree is what's missing. If you look at like him from a route standpoint, it is just slants, curls, and screen. Or excuse me, goes, curls, and screens. Go. Just very like if we talked about Tet McMillan is on the better separator, better in-breaking route family of the X receiver. Trey Harris is very much straightly on like the straight line X receiver family, which is, we brought up Alec Pierce. Let's bring him up again. I mean, he's like kind of that. And I do think there's some similarities between Trey Harris and Alec Pierce. But there's, again, this is a very volatile archetype of player, but he's certainly an X receiver candidate. And I think early on he might be useful because he can really run that 9 route, man. And he can work back on curls. I mean, 29.4% of his routes charted for reception perception were curl routes, which is outrageous. But 87.8% success rate. Like he can get the routes that he was asked to run. Yeah. He can do it. I mean, he's got a lot of experience doing it. He better be good at it. He was good at it. So I think you can have him kind of start out as that sacrificial X receiver, and hopefully along the way become more of a target earner. So I think Trey Harris, again, if we're thinking about this family of receivers, the peak of this family is probably DK Metcalf. Like, you want him to sort of push along that archetype, that part of the archetype. But the low end of it is very low. I mean, shoot, if the mid range of it is friggin' Alec Pierce, like, we're not
Traquan Smith.
Oh my God!
You know who he actually is very frighteningly similar to Trey Harris from a reception perception standpoint. Like, their prospect profile is eerily similar. Terrace Marshall out of LSU.
No,
I know. And look, I mean, Terrace Marshall, I actually thought he was an interesting prospect because he, just like Trey Harris, he actually has good overall success rate versus man and press numbers, but it comes on a very limited menu of routes, and Marshall just never really kind of pushed beyond that. Even when he had like a little moment with the Steve Wilkes Panthers, I think late in his second season, it was go back and watch those routes. I mean, well, please do better things with your time. But don't. Just take my word for it. It was all nines and slants, which was exactly what he did in college. So, like, that's the low end of that archetype, which is obviously pretty low.
I'm just curious of what your overall thoughts, because this receiver class has been shed on, because it's just when you've had past receiver classes that have just been outrageous, just in terms of the prospects it has in it, and I feel like the quarterbacks in this class is kind of getting this. It's kind of getting the same thing. Like when you come off a quarterback class that had Drake May, Caleb Williams, like Jaden, like feels like this. Yeah, like this quarterback class is getting a little unfair. Like I get it, it's not as good as last year's, but it's not. I feel like it's being a little harshly. It's like, oh, this is like Kenny Pickett's draft class all over 2022. It's like, let's calm down a little bit. It feels like the receivers in this draft class, the receiver class in this draft class is getting that a little bit. So after you've broken down this receiver class and for the most part and kind of worked through the guys in this class, what's your overall impression of this receiver class for the upcoming 2025 draft class?
I think we've been really spoiled by receiver classes of late. I mean, even think back to 2020 where, I mean, shoot, like there was a bunch of guys that went in the first round, like Henry Ruggs went off the board first, which everybody knew at the time wasn't going to age well. But like Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk went, and then Justin Jefferson, Jalen Reagor, like those guys all went in the first round. And then
T. Higgins went in the second round.
I was going to say, you look in the second round, like T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, like there were some damn good players that went in the second round that year. And then obviously 2021 has Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith won the damn Heisman, Jalen Waddle was a top 10 pick. 2022, there were 3 guys that were just clear cut, no question about it, top 10 picks. Like Olave, London, Wilson, all those guys were great. Jameson Williams was even, like, some people thought Jameson Williams might be the best receiver from that draft class.
Yeah.
Not me. I wasn't among them, but I mean, he was a good first round prospect, like a tier 2 prospect to me. And there were other good players in that class. Last year, we again had 3 guys that could go in the top 10 of any draft. They went in the top 10 of those drafts, and the best player at the position was the guy who went behind them, and Brian Thomas. So it was another great receiver class. This group actually, I think, profiles pretty similar to 2023, where we had a lot of guys go. That we had 4 guys go in the first round: Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, and Quentin Johnston. Varying degrees of success, of course, but a lot of those guys were viewed as number 2s and like complementary players. That's where I think this group is at, to me, because I love Emeka Egbuka because he's just so reliable. He's very similar to Amon-Ra St. Brown. People complain about the upside of this archetype of receiver. Who's complaining about Amon-Ra St. Brown leading the league in catches and yards, like pushing for it every single year? Nobody.
Egbuka's going to be a good NFL wide receiver and a good player. Like I don't know. Like it's annoying.
I don't really get that one. But again, he's a good player. I really like. I also think Matthew Golden. Obviously, I think big media members are very high on Matthew Golden because I think teams are high on Matthew Golden because of what he brings you tactically as like he clears space. But also, I think he's similar to like Jordan Addison. If he's the number 2 across from one of the best ones in the league, he's gonna absolutely feast on some big plays and things of that nature. So that's why this class is kind of similar to that group. And also, in addition to that, I think day 2 is really stacked with a lot of good players. I mean, I'm a huge Jack Besh guy. Kyle Williams is really good. Trey Harris, like I said, is a volatile prospect, but somebody I wouldn't mind spending an early second round pick on because when this type hits, it hits big. And even beyond that, like, I love Jalen Knoll, who I think is a first round, second round player. But I kind of view him as like the same I did with Josh Downs that year. Josh Downs went 79th overall. How embarrassing for the NFL that Josh Downs went 79th overall. I had him ranked ahead of Quentin Johnston. So, like, Jalen Knoll's that guy for me this year. And then even, again, beyond that, like, some people like Jaden Higgins a little more than I do, but, he's kind of a good player. So there's some – I mean, he's got good hands. He just can't separate, which is a problem.
Bro, you talking about a wide receiver. That's an issue.
It's a bit of an issue. So, again, there are some quality options on the second day of the draft this year. I think that's where the strength of this class is. Did
you get to Savion Williams to TCU?
I knew you were going to ask.
Yeah. God, I mean, he's perfect to talk about on a Saints podcast because I could absolutely see him being one of those random touchdown vultures, that we were talking about earlier.
It's one of my draft days, man. I told that, like I said on an episode not too long ago, I just have a soft spot for those types. Like, just They're not really great route runners, but you just get the ball in the hand. I can't help it. I just can't.
Like
help it.
we had a debate when this was before we did a podcast. Like he was a big Kevin White guy, and I was like a big Amari Cooper guy. So like that's just his type. Like as people, we have types. Like it just happens.
That's so nice of you to bring up a one where you just one-handedly.
Oh no, and there's been ones where like I've been completely wrong and he's been right too. But in that moment, like,
hey, that's it.
No, yeah, but I think Savion is.
I like Savion, by the way.
Yeah,
I like Savion myself.
What I will say for him, and he's going to be in the rookie roundup on reception perception, which will come out the week of the draft. So like kind of mini, he might end up getting a full profile, but he'll definitely at least be in that one.
Interesting.
What stands out with him is I just think he has really good hands. Like for a guy that is kind of a gadget player, and at least he's sort of viewed that way. And look, he can't run routes like at this point. It's just the routes between what's going on the right side of the field, which is Jack Besh's side, versus what's going on the left side of the field. It is like really night and day. But I will say I do think, other than the Stanford game, the first one of the year, which was a mess for Savion from a hands perspective, other than that, he like cleanly catches the football really well on kind of these downfield routes. So I think there is something there, but I tend to think, which is why I said about like the Saints and kind of the touchdown vulture thing, I could see him as more of just like kind of a nebulous positionless type player, which that always does worry me because it's just really hard to like work those guys into the flow of your offense.
One of the last ones I have for you, and I know you don't do reception perception for tight ends, but the Tyler Warren thing is so fascinating to me because just watching him, you see a lot of his production. It comes off like wheel routes where like no one's on him. Like you don't really see him screens. You don't really see him like lined up and maybe asked to beat like a linebacker, beat a safety. To his credit, like that's some of it. Like he was schemed open, and that's not his fault. But I would be just so fascinated to know like hypothetically like what his perception would be, because he's a player that it's very a la carte in terms of player working out this offseason. He's not working out for anyone unless teams are interested in drafting him. So you're not going to have anything on him unless you're bringing him into your building and you're working him out yourself. So he's just a fascinating player to me just in general. I just want to know your thoughts about Tyler Warren.
No, yeah, I've watched him and Colson Loveland, obviously, and I think it's interesting how these two guys have been framed throughout the course of the process, because it feels like Loveland is sort of the, he's, you got to have the right system. You got to have the right this, that, and the other.
What?
He's sort of like a flex tight end type.
Yeah.
I think he's so much more just like the regular inline guy.
Yes.
Yes. He's a better blocker than me. He's
a very, very, like, gives a lot of effort. He was playing through a shoulder injury this past year, so you never know how much like that affects it and everything. But like, I agree with you. I think he's a good blocker and like somebody that I would just be comfortable as my traditional inline tight end who, also you split out and do some fun stuff with, of course. Warren, I do feel like is a bit more, like, I don't want to say he's like Brock Bowers, because that's like, obviously Brock Bowers just had this dynamic year, but Bowers was a guy that was deployed all over the formation, and he went to a team last year that had like a target vacuum, and there's just not a lot of teams that want to make the tight end the first read in the concept. There's not a lot of plays where the tight end is the first read of the concept, unless you're doing stuff to design that guy targets. And the Raiders designed the shit out of some targets for Brock Bowers, because of course they did. They have one good receiver in Jacoby Myers, and the rest of their depth chart's a mess. So I'm actually interested to see what happens if they added like another X or something like that. Like what does, I mean, Bowers will still be great because it's Bowers, but Warren in that way, I do think that he's going to more so take the right coach and the right vision to sort of scheme those things open. I think Sam Laporta with the Detroit Lions is kind of like a good comparison for him, because like Laporta is another guy that he gets credited as a better blocker than he is, because he comes from Iowa. He plays for a hard-nosed Lions team, but he's more of like I'll get in the way as a blocker. Not a net negative, but I'll get in the way as a blocker more than like, I'm digging dudes out in the run game. That's to me what Tyler Warren is. And he's also like a lot of those Laporta. This is why Laporta's production fell off when Jamison Williams emerged last year, because again, those are more threatening plays within the concept of the routes and everything like that. So I do think that's why Warren and sort of Laporta it makes sense to me. But that also, by the way, makes sense if he's the 10th overall pick by the Chicago Bears, who just hired Ben Johnson, obviously from the Detroit Lions.
Right.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. I can't stress enough for people. Everybody loves, the charts you put up and stuff like that, but like sign up for reception, a couple of bucks a month, and read like the actual write-ups, because the write-ups are like the best thing about it. Like you go deep into detail, and it kind of paints a real picture that goes along with the chart of who these guys could really be. I love reading them on like every which one you put out. I just love reading it because you just really get a good vision of what this guy you're projecting them to the NFL. Like, what can they really be in the NFL? Yeah. And I love the way you paint the picture just through words.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, that's my favorite part too. Like, yeah, obviously the charts get a lot of attention, but a great one is like we talked about Jaden Higgins. Like, yeah, he does not separate. He does not come out with like success rate versus man press numbers that you want from an ex receiver, which is what he was playing with Iowa State. But I talked about in the write-up, like, what if he does get a role change similar to, like, some of these guys that we've seen have these sort of same success rates? That's all, like, don't just – never just look at the chart and be like, this guy sucks, this guy's good. Like, kind of why is that is the case? So I appreciate it. I try to put a lot of effort into the write-ups, and I appreciate you actually saying that that at least somebody's out there reading them, Ryan. At least somebody's
we read them, bro.
No, we read them. Just before we let you go, man, talk about your growth of reception perception. Where it was where you've come from. Seeing you on Twitter. Getting to know you on Twitter, dating back to like 2011, 2012, to seeing where you are now. You had a whole ass conference talking about reception perception recently, working for Yahoo, the whole glow up. We talked about this last year, but just talking about the glow up that is Matt Harmon, man. Like, how has that whole journey been for you?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's been the conference you mentioned, the Sloan MIT Sports Analytics Conference. That was such a cool opportunity that only happened because one of the guys that was organizing it happened to listen to Reception Perception, the show, and was like, this is probably the perfect fit for us. So shout out to Carl. Carl McKay was the one who put that together.
Carl?
And, yeah, shout out Carl. So it just... I just left feeling there, there's a room full of like 200 plus people listening to me talk about this thing that I, created in my 1-bedroom apartment in Lynchburg, Virginia, like 12 years ago. And a bunch of people asked me questions about it, more thoughtful questions than me. A lot of people like, have you ever thought about having AI, automate this for you? I'm like, have you ever thought about, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You ever thought about it? I don't know the first thing about AI, and also I like doing the work, and that's the thing to me is that I every year I enjoy doing the work, and I find it more gratifying than ever, and that's really where I'm at right now. I mean, yeah, the cool part is like there's never enough work, if that makes sense, where like there's never a point where, all right, we've done it all, because like I will get through this draft class, and I think right now I'm probably going to have at like 25 guys on the site by the time all the profiles are up, by the time the rookie roundup is up, which I think is more, or at least on par with what I did last year from a prospect standpoint. Yeah, if I look back last year, prospects, I had 23. I think I will actually outkick that number, which is stupid because this is not as good of a receiver class as the one last year. So
doesn't matter.
Dumb planning by me. But I no matter what, I'll get all those guys done, and there will still be questions about, well, what about Nick Nash or
what about
Jimmy Warren from Colorado?
Will Shepard. What about Will Shepard, Matt?
But you know what? I say so. There's always more that could be done, which is good, and I'm happy to do it, because every now and again I started charting this Isaac Tesla from Arkansas.
I saw the tweet. Yeah,
I mean, bro, this guy has like very little production at Arkansas. He's this big, white, athletic freak. Only runs routes from the slot. But his athletic comparables are like Allen Robinson, Rome Odunze, Andre Johnson from Miami, and like the film is kind of cool. Like, I don't know. So you just find these like, and then like, damn,
Sounds like Matt Jones. Oh my god,
Yes,
I
I had somebody point that out actually.
Oh my god, I haven't thought about Matt Jones in like ages. We're just sickos, bro. Just sickos.
Yeah, hopefully he has a little bit less of an arrest record, but Isaac Tesla does. I've heard nothing but good things about the character on Isaac Tesla, so that's good. But yeah, again, I love doing the work, and the fact that people dig it is a nice little bonus.
Real quick, all the data that you collect that data, like, is that from yourself, from your own tape study, or do you pull in other stuff from?
Yeah, it's every piece of wide receiver data from receptionperception.com has been charted by me and me alone. So
do you get the all 22, or do you just pull? Or okay,
have to have that. Of course.
Yeah.
So the college that's one thing. Actually, this is a great way to just talk about what a sicko. Not only I am, but the people that subscribe to the site are. Because I used to work for NFL Network, so I got all the film that I needed from there when I was working there, which was the 2016, 2017, 2018 draft class. When I left there to start at Yahoo in 2018, for the 1920 draft class, I didn't have access to film because there wasn't quite the underground little exchange that there is now these days of the college all 22. So I didn't chart the 19 and 20 draft class. So it like haunts me a little that I don't have some of those guys in the database, to the point that some of my subscribers were like, would you ever consider like going back and like charting that draft class?
They're already in the NFL. Like what do you?
Right.
They've been in the.
But that's how sick these guys, and I say this lovingly, like literally our highest tier subscription is called the sicko tier for a reason.
I love it.
Because if you want all that data, you are for sure a sicko. And we fucking love the sickos, bro. We love the sickos. So we are, But we are
Matt,
sickos.
go back and subscribe. Just chart the 2019 and 2020. I love it.
Like, you know what? I actually think it would be a very useful thing to like fill out the collegiate database. Like, oh, what if there were signs of Jalen Reagor's reception perception? He was going to be a massive bust or whatever.
Couldn't stand his tape. I couldn't stand his tape.
But then I just remind the people like, hey, well, in the summer, when you want me, like, you want to report on some random wide receiver 4, what's Jordan Whittington, what's his reception perception look like? Remember that there's only so many hours in the day, so what are we sacrificing here?
Matt, it's a pleasure. It's an honor, as always, having you on. Next year in Indy, we will all get together and chop it up. Love having you on, as always, bro. Anything that you're just excited about in this upcoming draft class that is coming up like next Thursday?
Yeah, man. I am excited about the fact that Yahoo Sports is having our live show again. We're gonna be taping in LA, so I'll be in LA. Next week. Yeah, I leave. God damn, it is coming up. I got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, like I fly out to New Orleans on Wednesday, so I'm like, shit.
Yeah. So we're having our live show again. So we'll be live for the first night and the second night of the NFL draft. It'll be me, Jason Fitz, Nate Tice, Charles McDonald. We'll be live for the whole thing. So I hope people can. I'm sure you guys will be having something going on. So in the meantime, that's why we all have multiple screens. You pop up. You pop up for what you guys are doing. You pop up for our thing. I'm very excited about it.
All of it. So make sure you check out Yahoo Sports with Matt and the live show. We'll be doing our live stream of the Saints as the draft is ongoing. It's draft time. It's exciting.
You guys will be having some fun. My bold prediction. You guys will have a lot to talk about.
Oh, we absolutely will. Whether it's good or bad, we will see. Thanks, Matt. We appreciate you having you on, man. A pleasure as always. We appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, brother.
Peace.